Hello and welcome to the NorthForm podcast. I have tried twice unsuccessfully to upload a video. And so this time, third time, it should work. And I am excited to talk to you about so many different things that I've been wrestling with. I guess Jordan Peterson has a new book out, relatively new, called We Who Wrestle with God. I've not read it. I know nothing about it, other than the fact that he wrote it. And I liked his other two books, one of the few books that I actually read the whole thing. Don't know how I did that. Can't seem to do that anymore. So, speaking of books, I'm going to read to you some excerpts and then cover some things of my own script that I've written up. I do not know how long this is going to take. It appears the audio is working this time. Should have good sound with this HyperX audio microphone. I like the little hexagonal pop filter that's built into it, and I can auto mute it and also adjust the volume and polar pattern right from the microphone, which is nice. And I do live in a somewhat noisy environment, so I apologize for any background noise. I do not have a full studio environment, but it should be more than good enough for this implementation. So let's see if I can read some of this. This is from a book that's out of print by Dr. George Bach and Herb Goldberg, with a new introduction, and I'll be reading from chapter 10. It's titled Like Sex, Suppressed, Repressed, and Taboo. So to give you the summary from where I left off, he's comparing the repressive sexual attitudes from the Victorian era and how they have remarkable parallels to the attitudes of the form of aggression today. So we were on number 3. Then, this is in the Victorian era, so I apologize, I'm going to skip the first few. So on number 3, it says, then, in the Victorian era, the sexuality was the cause of agonizing conflicts. Women agonized, should I or shouldn't I? If I do, he'll think I'm a tramp. If I don't, he might lose interest. Men struggled with issues like, will she think I'm too forward and get insulted if I try to kiss her on the first date? Or, I want to masturbate, but now it's a wrong thing to do. Oh boy, I can already see YouTube flagging this. I guess I'll have to figure out how to bleep things out. That's not going to happen. So go ahead and demonetize it, YouTube. Now, the expression of aggressive feelings is a source of agonizing conflicts. The following are some typical examples. Can I tell my employer that I resent the demands he's putting on me? If I do, I might alienate him and get fired. If I don't, I'll hate him and my job, and he'll continue to take advantage of me. I'm bored with their company and I want to leave, but if I tell them, it might hurt their feelings. If I don't tell them, I'll be climbing the walls soon. That's a funny way to put it. I'll be out of my head soon. That's another way to say it. If I tell her no, the next time she asks me to do her a favor, she'll get angry. If I say yes, I'll hate myself for allowing myself to be used. So you can see he's talking about this internal struggle that's going on. He's comparing the Victorian era of sexual suppression to the modern era of aggressive suppression, suppression of the aggression. There you go. And number 4, then many sexual, wow, he has a lot of them, 8 of them looks like. Then, no, he's got more than 8 of them. Let's see, 10, 11, 12, wow, that's a lot. Okay. He says, in time, however, we believe that aggressive processes will also be recognized for their pleasurable, necessary, and vital aspects, and the present repression of that experience will seem as outmoded and destructive as the repressions that once enveloped the experience of sexuality in the Victorian era, i.e. Now, aggressive experiences and feelings are a source of embarrassment. Let me back up. Then, Back then, many sexual feelings and experiences were a source of embarrassment and were kept secret. For example, don't tell anyone that we're having sex. I hope he doesn't find out that I'm frigid. I can't let anybody know that I have homosexual fantasies. Now, aggressive experiences and feelings are a source of embarrassment and are kept secret. For example, don't tell him I said I was annoyed with the way he's handling things. I don't want anyone to know I lost my temper over that. Don't let them know we've been fighting, which means arguing. At the beginning, he mentions how the conflict, we're afraid of conflict. Back then, free sexual activity was considered improper. The dichotomy between good girls and bad girls, of course. Similarly, good boys did not masturbate or even act in sexually aggressive ways. Those who did were considered behaving like quote-unquote animals in the Victorian era. Now, good people do not fight or lose their tempers or get into arguments, nor do they say impolite or unkind things that might make others uncomfortable or hurt their feelings. And above all, they avoid conflict and open displays of aggressiveness, and they are welcomed into, quote, nice homes. This is a nice home. It's a good Christian home here. Only, quote, bad people lose their tempers readily, give vent to casually angry feelings, or tell people off. Boy, oh boy. All right, let's go to number 8. Back then, for men, unselfconscious sexual abandonment and acting out of one's sexual fantasies were reserved largely for experience with prostitutes, casual affairs, or involvement with, quote, promiscuous women, but rarely with one's spouse. Men didn't want to, quote, use or abuse their wives in this way, and wives didn't want their husbands to think that they were anything but ladies. Now, aggressive abandonment and the total acting out of aggressive feelings are reserved for anonymous, impersonal targets like enemies or hated strangers or groups, but are seldom displayed toward intimates. The reasoning is, quote, I care about you, so why should I fight with you? One more, then we'll move on. Then, in the Victorian era, when people did not hide their bodies or were being openly erotic, people averted their eyes and out of embarrassment avoided watching or looking at them directly. Now, when two individuals argue, fight, or have angry outbursts, people get embarrassed and avoid looking at them directly. Yeah, that's pretty true. Okay, then sexuality was the source of widespread ignorance, distortions, and mythology. Some myths were, quote, masturbation will make you go crazy. Masturbation will make you go blind. Women don't have strong sexual needs. Excessive sexual activity will drain your energies. And now, the dogma is aggression is a source of widespread ignorance, distortions, and mythology. Quote, anger is destructive. Quiet, gentle people are harmless people. Conflicts between people can be permanently resolved if we would only learn to communicate. Another one, this book is a couple decades old. Good babies cry less. Yes, this was just after the era where they were saying that your baby is crying and you should, that's not good. You should let that work it out. They should work it out for themselves. Don't attend to them when they cry. And 11, I'm going to stop here, I hope. Then the repression of sexual feelings was the major cause of many psychosomatic symptoms, such as backaches, headaches, cramps, and various other symptoms. Now, the repression of aggressive feelings is one of causes of many psychosomatic illnesses, such as hypertension, arthritic conditions, asthma, and skin eruptions, and most recently, studies are showing, they say, cancer. And back then, a major cause of emotional symptoms and mental disorders were the inhibition of repression of sexual feelings. Symptoms like anxiety, guilt, depression, and hysterical symptoms were interpreted by psychoanalysts to be the result of repressed sexuality. Extreme repression of sexuality was said to produce severe emotional disorders. And now, a major cause of many emotional symptoms and mental disorders is the inhibition, suppression, and repression of aggressive feelings like anger, rage, and various forms of self-assertion. Symptoms like anxiety, guilt, depression, etc., may be interpreted as expressions of repressed aggression. Extreme repression of aggression can produce very profound emotional disorders. Analogies of the repression of aggressive feelings may appear to be inappropriate. Society looks on aggressive expression as fearful, while sexual expression is viewed as pleasurable, necessary, and vital. And in time, as I said, we believe that aggressive processes will also be recognized for their pleasurable, necessary, and vital aspects. And the present repression of that experience will seem as outmoded and destructive as the repressions that once enveloped the experience of sexuality. What a short chapter that was. That was chapter 10. Kind of just a bookmark there in the middle, kind of explaining how we got where we are and how these things transmogrify over time. So this one is underlined. It says the notion that aggression breeds more aggression contains within it the underlying belief that aggression can be eliminated altogether. The authors view this as a romantic fantasy, born as a psychological defense against the feared and hated aggressive impulses within the pacifists themselves. That's pretty deep. There's not a shred of evidence in support of the belief that aggression can be totally eliminated. I know from a evolutionary biology perspective that's true. Rather, the task is one of acknowledging openly its reality in all of us and eliminating the taboos against its expression in personal ways, and then training or socializing its expression into constructive channels. Absolutely. The pacifist confuses his own passive defenses against aggression with peacefulness. I'm going to read that one again. The pacifist confuses his own passive defenses against aggression with peacefulness. One place that I see this always coming up is when people go, but it is what it is. I hate that. I absolutely hate that. The only time I use it is just as a dismissive mechanism, which is how other people are using it. It is what it is. I hate it, but I can't do anything about it. Sometimes that's relatively true. But the fact is that if you don't like how it is, then try to change it. And if you don't try to change it, and you want to change it, well, that's the definition of repression, right? And sometimes you're going to have to go to a different avenue in order to make that change. That's called the law of indirect change. You change one thing over here, and you create another change, an off-bound effect somewhere else. And that's also applies to effort. So you apply effort in one domain, and then you end up finding that that effort may have stalled in the domain that you started in, but is instantly or eventually transferred over into another domain. That's called the law of indirect effort. So on that, I'm going to pull up what I have here. And we're going to start with some, I actually don't know where I'm going to start because I'm improvising this. The lost art of improvisation. Hashtag bring back improvisation. All right. So purpose statement. So I think each person needs to have a purpose statement. They need to have a mission. They need to have a vision. They need to have a mission statement and a vision statement, which is synonymous with a purpose statement. So mine for today, and this can always change. It can change every day. I had another one. It's somewhere in my notes. I'll pathologize myself and say that I have hypographia, which is a term that basically means overwriting. I overwrite. I overwrote so much. This is the type of person that has like hundreds and hundreds of notebooks and like 5,000 Apple Notes, or name your note-taking app, Evernotes. And it's not for a school capacity. That doesn't really qualify. It's personal things. But once again, pathologizing, that's not good, if you ask me. Our society has pathologized every damn thing, including cursing, which I just did. And I think it's very sick because you're using a different part of your brain when you curse, when you cuss. They've imaged the brain with magnetic resonance imaging, positron emission topography, PET scans, PET scans. And they found that your brain, the linguistic centers of your brain, are not as active when you cuss, when you use swear words. Instead, another part of your brain turns on. So my purpose statement for today is, quote, to influence and inspire every person to flourish into the entirety of their being. So that's a pretty broad one. You can be more or less specific in your domain of interest. So then I got some quotes. Growth stops when you lose the tension between where you are and where you could be. When where you are and where you could be has lost its tension, that's when growth stops. All right, so then another one that's been on my mind is a malapropism. Have you guys heard of this? A malapropism is where you use a word, typically a homophone, which is different types of words that sound the same but are not the same word, are written differently. They sound the same, but they're written differently. My example is do the right thing, but instead of do the right thing with R-I-G-H-T, you write W-R-I-T-E. You're writing it. That goes back to the hypergraphia. My ex-best friend, we coined the term emotography, which means writing about your emotions, is a very powerful tool, which is in the vein of what we were talking about with this book called Creative Aggression. I have trouble seeing that. There you go. And The Art of Assertive Living. Oh, I forgot to give you the subtitle. The Art of Assertive Living, right? The idea traditionally is that you don't want to be aggressive necessarily, nor do you want to be passive or passive-aggressive. You want to be assertive. So a malapropism is a word that's used incorrectly, typically in writing form, but often sounds the same. My definition I came up with is a word or group of words used in an incorrect context that sounds but does not read correctly. That sounds correctly but does not read correctly. Rubber band analogy. Maxwell, I don't remember his last name. Maxwell, I will find that for you. John C. Maxwell, great author. I have one of his books in Spanish that I got when my friend and I were in Colombia. So rubber bands are only useful when they're stretched, right? And likewise, the human being only grows and develops and flourishes as a life when it's being stretched. Literally, metaphorically, emotionally. So, and then this is me. There's a fine line between hesitation and deliberately choosing the right time, right? So, he who hesitates is lost, but he who is too bold often dies unnecessarily. As my ex says, there are bold pilots and there are old pilots, but there are no bold and old pilots. I don't completely agree with that, however, but it's a nice quote. So another one that I would encourage you to do when you're in your passion, when you're doing your thing that you love, you need to take micro breaks. Step away, refresh before you get frustrated, because when you get frustrated, you've lost the ability to effectively practice once you're frustrated. And so many people, they practice in frustration. They even practice out of frustration. They start practicing because they're frustrated. It's really not a good way to practice. You need to have aligned practice. And there's a lot of ways to do that, which we can get into another time. So some more stuff. This will credit to Brian Tracy, who is absolutely fantastic personal development quote. Let's see. We're going on 20 minutes. That felt like nothing. All right. So if you just write down your goals, I did the Jay Peterson's self-authoring program, which was great. Although it's best if when you write down your goals, you look back at them every so often. But just writing down your goals, ladies and gentlemen, makes you 115%. That's more than twice as likely to accomplish them. Just writing them down, twice as likely. So you need to realize the importance of having something to aim at. Okay? You literally are manufacturing dopamine, and you're more happy and motivated when you are aiming at something, like right now, I'm going to get this damn podcast done, right? I tried twice, nice and short and sweet, nice and succinct, and I couldn't do it. So then I struggled with myself for a couple days. Let's see. Yeah, a couple days, more than a couple days, to try and do it again. But the universe works in mysterious ways, my friend. So if you're not motivated or focusing enough on what you want, you're just placated. If you're not motivated and you're not focusing, then you're just placated with what you're doing. Create a vision of what your ideal day looks like. Who's in this vision? What's your ideal day like? Who is in it with you or around you? What task are you doing? Where are you? What kind of travel habits are you doing in this ideal life? What kind of feelings do you want to feel every day? Right? A goal is, a dream is just a dream. A dream is just a goal, but you don't have any deadline and you don't have an action plan. A dream is a goal without a deadline and an action plan. Did you get that? So that's why I'm very loyal to Honda. I own so many Hondas, only Hondas actually, save for one Kawasaki. And for cars, we'll say automobiles, I've only owned Hondas. So the Honda's tagline is the power of dreams. Right, Soichiro Honda, the founder of Honda, he had a dream. And he was beaten down and beaten down and beaten down. He was told he couldn't by other business owners, by the Japanese government, by Americans when they first came into the American. But you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't do that. He kept doing. He kept on. So I encourage you to keep on. If you got haters, you're doing something right. If you don't have any enemies, then you are not being bold enough. Okay, next, don't misattribute things. This is called in psychology the fundamental attribution error. There's many ways to dive into this, but essentially, we humans, we look for a reason, right? Causes come first. I'm gonna have to resort to my notes again, which I'm not going to do. Causes come first, reasons come second, right? We come up with the reasons, but the causes were already there. Here it is. Well, here's my reason. Yeah, it's probably bullshit. So be aware of your tendency as a human to misattribute things. Oh, it's because of this. It's because of my wife. It's because of my ex-wife. It's because of my mom. It's because of that guy, right? Something bad happens. Literally, they've studied this. We instantly look for whoever's around. It was your fault. I knew it was you. You made me do that, right? As some people like to say, why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing this? Excuse me. I'm not doing anything to you. You're doing this to yourself. It's always a question of between you and you. But the fundamental attribution error that humans have is no, it's between me and you. No, it's not between me and you. It's between you and you. So don't misattribute things. It's very common and gets people in a lot of trouble. So always take whatever happens as your responsibility. You are able to respond. That's all you have to do is respond. And as Brian Tracy says, by the way, highly recommend Brian Tracy's. Fantastic, especially his Phoenix seminar. If you just type in Brian Tracy Phoenix seminar, fantastic. In the prime of his life, he's giving these seminars, and they are absolutely life-changing, truly. So one of the things he says is never complain and don't explain. You can make observations. That's not the same as complaining. But never complain and don't explain. Why do you feel the need to explain yourself? As Andy Yogi says, that means you're weak. You're getting all flustered. You're getting, oh, I have to explain X, Y, Z. You have to justify it. That means that implicitly there's something that you feel is not right and that you're trying to redress with your empty words. And we all do it. Let's be honest. We all do it. I definitely do it too. I'm aware when I do it. That's the most important thing. I'm aware. Yes, this is a justification. Might be bullshit. But maybe not. How do you know? You know by what the eventual consequences are, what the fruits are. All right, now moving on to self-soothing. I don't want you all to rely on others to soothe you. So many people do this. You're going to be my rock. You're going to make me feel better. No, they're not. They cannot consistently do that for you. Absolutely not. Don't rely on others to soothe you. You have to develop your own self-soothing mechanisms. That's why in ancient philosophy they say wisdom is born out of solitude. Or as one of the founding fathers of the U.S. says, he says, any organization that would have me as a member, I would not join. I think that's pretty funny. It really shows you the revolutionary nature of the founding fathers. Or as they taught us in history class, the framers. I never liked that term, the framers. Although now that I look back, I think it's kind of good. All right, what else we got? Here's a quote. I don't know if it has an attribution. It says, nature is busy creating absolutely unique individuals, whereas culture has invented a single mold in which everyone must conform. It's grotesque. So it's grotesque that you as an individual, which nature has tried to make completely unique and special, with unique gifts, unique abilities, and unique contributions. But culture says you're going to fit into this mold. As my good friend Celeste says, it's pounding that's a round hole, square peg. I prefer square peg and you're a round hole. Just jam it on in there. Just keep hammering that. See what happens. It's grotesque. By the way, grotesque, I looked up the etymology. It says it's an insufferable style of Roman architectural excavation. Grotesque. All right, moving on. And don't be worried if I contradict myself. Where are we at? 26 minutes. All right. Don't forget that there's no they there. This one I coined myself it's a modification of that old saying, there's no there. And I just love that because it's so ambiguous. There's no there, bro. Dude, where's my car? It was over there. There's no there. But no, there's no they there. Everybody uses this they word, and I'm starting to get people to realize that this they word, that's a dirty word. There's no they there. They're trying to keep us down. It's a free society. No, they've made us slaves. Okay, I get it. But no, there's no they there. Back to it's between you and you. That's all there is. It's between you and you. You throw other people in the mix, guess what? It's still between you and you. It's based on the awareness that you have. How much awareness do you have? Don't forget that there's no they there. All right, be careful that you don't fall into the other ever-present trap of symbol worship. As Alan Watts says, they're pointing at the moon for you to look at the majesty of it. And they say the word moon, and the finger's pointing at it. And everybody gets obsessed with moon. M-O-O-N, moon. Oh, look at the finger. Look at that. Oh, that's moon, finger. No, you're confusing the symbol with the reality. Right? The word moon is not the moon. That's a mouth sound. And we manipulate our vocal folds and our tongue and our lips to create the sound that reminds us of the moon, puts an image in your head of the moon. But that's not the moon. So be careful not to worship the symbols, which so many people do. Christians being the very obvious example. Worshipping Jesus. It's beautiful. Jesus was great. But don't forget, I'm not going to get into that right now because that's another rabbit hole, maybe another time. But you should not worship symbols. You should worship reality and the potentialities of reality. Okay, back to they. We're going to temporarily reinstantiate they. We're going to allow they to be there. Okay, so here's the they. Their goal is to convince you. That's you. Their goal is to convince you there are too many barriers to entry. I mean, I've taken tests where literally They were saying that the correct answer to how to have a good business, how to be successful, it was to put up more barriers to entry for your competitors. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. So I came up with this phrase. I hope people steal this stuff. If people are stealing from me, that means my intellectual property. That means I'm doing something right. So I'm very happy about that. Spread that mind virus. It's beautiful. So I don't even remember what I was saying now. Anyway, I'll come back to it. Too many barriers to entry. Okay, so what do you need to do? What is it that you need to do? Oh, that's called a monopoly. That's called a monopoly. Let's create barriers of entry, and let's use governments to enforce that monopoly. Yeah, we'll have a great society if we just but see, that's not what I said. I abstracted it. I said their goal is just to get, they don't actually have to put up barriers to entry. So this is the subtle, this is where you get into psychological operations. They don't actually have to put up barriers to entry. They just have to convince you that they're there. They have to put up all these filtering mechanisms to convince you it's not possible for you. And they eliminated 90% of people right there, because only 10% of people are willing to do those things that they think they have to do, i.e. the barriers to entry. Okay? So one of the many solutions to this is you need to weaponize your own ignorance. Okay? Not ignorance. Ignorance. Ignorance, as my good friend Thomas says, there's double ignorance. Double ignorance is that you don't know what you don't know. Unaware, right? Ignorance is you're aware, but you're deliberately ignoring it. It's a different framing of ignorance. And in that respect, ignorance, I'm pronouncing it differently so you see the difference. Ignorance is extremely powerful. Deliberately ignoring something. Let's say a behavior somebody does. Now, it's not the only strategy. There are sometimes better strategies. But you ignore that behavior. You withdraw your attention from that behavior. It's likely that that person's going to be less incentivized to do that behavior. But once again, most of us don't do that. Most of us don't do that. We give them the attention that they seek, the negative, the false attention, that attention-seeking behavior, right? If somebody can't get attention for the good things, they're going to seek attention for the bad things. I can damn well guarantee that. So don't be fooled by these barriers to entry. There's no barriers to entry. There's no barriers to entry. The only barriers to entry are the ones that you confabulate in your mind. Example, this podcast. Of course I was able to make, how many hours of podcasting could I have done before finally doing this? Right? But I didn't, because this is really meta. The idea that I had already done the podcast that I wanted to do unsuccessfully, having microphone issues, which I've done podcasts before and didn't have microphone issues, was somehow prospectively, forward-lookingly, impeding me from doing this podcast. How bizarre is that? This should not have any relationship with each other. But somehow just the thought that I tried twice and I wasted that time trying to do that, setting it up, that prevented me, right? So you need ignorance. You need to learn to selectively ignore things. That's actually what your brain does. It's a selective filtering mechanism. Your brain is filtering out 80 to 90% of the stimuli around you as we speak, maybe more. All right, lead generation is primary. Sales is the lifeblood. America, we've got this problem where we hate salespeople. And sales is the lifeblood of any business. Sales is the lifeblood of a business. That's not to minimize other parts of business. The business of the United States is business. It's the land of opportunity. Why do we meet so many Venezuelans and Colombians and Mexicans and people from South America and other countries? There's other reasons for it, but one of the main reasons is because they know there's opportunity here. There's freedom. There's more freedom here. So, what else we got? So everything is downstream from your lead generation, your pipeline, your ability to meet people, find people online, get their attention, and convince them that you have something to offer them. Because money is just another form of energy. And most people are really blocked about money. Even rich people are very blocked about money. So, and selling is very profitable. With little to no education, people even without a high school education have gotten very rich off of selling. But it's a very dirty term. Sociologically, we see selling is very dirty, which is very unfortunate. A prime example of that would be car sales, because I was in car sales for a while, and yeah, it's a dirty business. It kind of is a dirty business, but once you learn about it, you start to see why it's set up that way. Once again, too many laws and over-regulation, over-centralization, right? Which is starting to change. It's changing faster and faster and faster. If you're stuck in the second 2.5, Industrial Revolution 2.5, in that era, where you went to work for a big company, and back then you'd get a pension, and you were beholden to these policies, and you couldn't talk to your boss. Your boss doesn't care about you. You're just a number in a system. Right, that system is, people can see it's not going to work anymore. It's Qianliang. I don't remember what it is in Chinese, but it's called lay flat in China. It's happening in China too. So this is the whole world. This thing is people. I don't want to be a part of this system. Why would I do that? I'm basically an indentured servant. Now, of course, relatively speaking, people have it way worse. There are modern-day slaves. I always remind people, there are more slaves today, cumulatively today, than there ever have been in the history of humanity. Okay? So we could talk about the problems of slavery in the past, but just remember, just ask yourself, what are you doing about the modern-day slaves? Are you providing value in a marketplace, tangibly or intangibly, to make people's lives better? Because if you're not, then you're not all you can be. I'm not all I can be. None of us are every day. What's the point of tomorrow if you don't get better today? What's the point of tomorrow if you're not getting better today? Okay, so we're here to cure this sickness that we have. I mean, it's a very sick society when 1/5 out of every 5 children wants to kill themselves, right? Or to look at it another way, maybe that's a sign of cultural evolution. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe these young kids are becoming their own philosophers, as maybe it was Sartre. I don't remember who said it, Montesquieu. Anyway, Jean-Paul. We'll go with Jean-Paul Sartre. The only real philosophical question is whether or not to kill yourself right now. Whew. Oh boy. That's one way to philosophize. All right, so I'm going to close out with some questions for you. What are we at? 38 minutes. Wow. Wonder how much I could do this every day. This really was. See, this isn't draining at all because I'm in my purpose. So here are some questions for you, because your subconscious mind loves questions. I'm sorry, I'm getting this stuff off the camera that's really frustrating me off the top of the. It's because of the way the light's hitting it. So your subconscious mind loves questions. So you need to ask more questions. The quality of your life, as Robin says, is based on the quality of questions that you ask. And most people don't ask good questions. I need you to ask good questions. And we'll say that this is based off the Da Vinci technique, Leonardo da Vinci. And it's essentially you write out 100 questions. Then you go through and you select 10 of those questions that are most meaningful to you. I guarantee if you do this exercise, it's transformational. And then of those 10 questions, you pick only the 3 or 1, between 3 and 1. You just pick the most salient questions in your brain. And then you contemplate those and you think about those before you go to bed. You don't think about them really at all. You just ask the question and you don't have to think about it. Then you go to sleep and your subconscious mind speaks to you. And then you wake up, and if you think of something, you write it down, or you type it out, or you speak it, or you record it into your phone. And it will give you answers to these questions. And it's very powerful. Insanely powerful. Of course, this is why you need solitude again, because if there's any amount of embarrassment or self-censorship or other censorship, dulling your flame, which people love to do. It's another manifestation of sickness. Dull other people's flames. Let them do it. Let them do it. Let them do what they want. Let them face the consequences. Positive or negative. So here's some of the questions. What is the law of attraction giving me? What can I use from the people the law of attraction is attracting to me? Because you are an attractor. You are creating an attractive field in everything you do. How can I be more deliberate about my vibration? In other words, how can I be more deliberate about the energy signature that I'm putting out, which is calling things to me and away from me based on law of attraction? How can I become more quantumly coherent? Why am I attracting people I would not prefer to be in my life? Maybe I need to work on the quality of some of my questions. Where can I go to bring better people around me? To where can I go to bring better people around me? How can I use the resistance from other people around me to learn about myself and my own problems? If I'm not becoming better today, what really is the point of waking up tomorrow? If I can't get better tomorrow, why did I work so hard today? How can I live fully in the now and accomplish what I desire? How can I accomplish what I desire and live fully in the now? Why do I constantly find myself doing things out of obligation rather than genuine desire? Why do I find myself doing things out of obligation rather than genuine desire? Okay, how can I prevent myself from feeling overwhelmed by possibilities? Right? Optionality is usually a good thing. However, some might argue that in today's society we've got too many options. Analysis paralysis, but not even necessarily analysis, just optionality paralysis. It's not as catchy of a term because there's so many choices that, oh my God, I just forget about it. I don't even want to worry about it. I don't want to make it. That's actually a way to live. Actually, it's pretty good. Just make as few decisions as necessary, because every decision that you make is a drain on your willpower. All right. Why do I constantly find myself doing things out of obligation rather than genuine desire? How can I prevent myself from feeling overwhelmed by the possibilities? How can I drop the things and come back to them when I feel more ready to address them? How can I follow my curiosity? How can I stretch tomorrow to be just 0.5% better than I was today? How can I stretch tomorrow to be just 0.5% better than today? How can I eliminate tomorrow another thing that doesn't serve me? How can I push out tomorrow another thing that does not serve me? Okay, what do I find myself weak on? What skills and abilities am I still weak on? We'll have to come back to this one. How can I start implementing the scamper technique? So stay tuned for that, the scamper technique. Really powerful stuff. Wow. Some of the stuff I come upon, I'm like, wow, this is a veritable gold mine right here. If people assimilate this and apply this, there's no way that their lives won't change. That's what I'm here for. I'm obsessed with value. I'm obsessed with giving you value. And it's free. Just think about how much free value is out there. People that don't leverage AI, free value being provided to you that can 10x your knowledge, skills, abilities, and workflow. 10x. No. Nah. All right. Well, that's fine. Maybe it's a generational thing. I don't know. How can I push tomorrow to eliminate one thing that doesn't serve me? What do I find myself still weak on? How can I start implementing the scamper technique? Where am I giving just to say techniques. What techniques can I start implementing tomorrow? What systems, even just cursory, perfunctory, basic systems, how can I implement those? I'm so sorry. I use big words. I can't help myself. Where am I? Okay, where am I? Where is it that I'm giving away my time to people that don't lift me up? Where and why am I giving time to people that don't lift me up? There's 3 kinds of people that you'll encounter. 1, they lift you up. 2, they're neutral. They neither lift you up or pull you down. And 3, they pull you down. And of course, there's varying degrees of how quickly they pull you down. Some of them, the worst are the subtle puller downers. Because it's just not enough to where you notice it. You don't notice it at first. Then the second, the third, then the fourth, then the fifth, and the sixth encounter. All of a sudden, oh God, this is a subtle energy vampire. Because the real energy vampires, as they call them, you know them right away. Like, this person's an energy. We are not having any relationship. But it's almost more pernicious, the subtle energy vampires, because you don't notice it right away. But you'll notice it eventually. All right, back to the questions. Let's finish up these questions and close this out. Where am I giving time away to people that don't serve me, that don't lift me up? How am I not serving others? In what ways am I not serving others to my full potential? Screen, stop blinking. On what avenues do I still find myself impatient? If you struggle with impatient, this one's a great one. And on what specific avenues do I still find myself impatient? In what ways am I still not giving of myself? If I've filled up my cup with my solitude, in what ways am I not still giving back to others? In what ways am I shutting myself up when I should be speaking my truth? When I see an injustice, in what way am I failing to address that injustice? So what abilities and learnings do I have that I'm failing to share with the world? What abilities and teachings do I have that I'm failing to share with the world? I feel like I can check that box off now because I did this. And I don't care if one damn person watches this. It was worth it. Okay, in what ways do I still find myself unnecessarily lazy? I don't know how I came up with the wording of that. In what ways do I still find myself unnecessarily lazy? I guess I'm implying that sometimes it's necessary to be lazy. True enough. In what ways do I still find myself being lazy? What still lays heavy on my mind? I like that one. That might be my favorite one of this short list. And what weighs still... Okay, I don't even know what I'm saying. What is still weighing heavy on my mind? There we go. What's still weighing heavy on my mind? What am I most worried about right now? You better address that one. Because if you don't, you're gonna address it in the wrong way, I promise you. You can't hide anything from your subconscious mind. It sees everything. That's why I don't lie, because you never have to remember what you say. And you're going to forget. Because one thing humans always are good at is they forget. They're also good at remembering. But you can guarantee things will be forgotten. All right, coming very close to the end now. What is still laying heavy on my mind? And it looks like this is the last one. Great. Okay, so as we close out, here's the last question for you all. What time are we at? We're at 48 minutes. Wow, that felt like, I would say like 13, 14 minutes in terms of energy expenditure. So that means on an energetic level, which is perhaps the most important level, this has high ROI. So I'm going to keep doing this. Last one. In what ways am I overstimulating myself? In what ways am I overstimulating myself that's leading to burnout? And with that, let's close out the NorthForm. NorthForm. I like that. Maybe it should be NorthForm. We're going to close out the NorthForm podcast today at just under 50 minutes of solo podcasting. I was so happy to provide this value to you. If you got value out of it, please leave a comment, like it, or share it with someone that you think might be receptive. And until next time, stay joyful, my friends. Peace out.